立法會主席。
The President of the Legislative Council. I'd like to remind members that this meeting after we have completed the first and second reading of the Appropriation Bill 2016, the meeting will be adjourned and then resumed at 3 p.m. And I also like to remind members that during the speech of the FS, if members' behavior is inappropriate, I will ask the member to leave, and he will not be allowed to come back in the remaining time of the meeting. The 3 days belong to one meeting. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, please return to your seat. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, I've already said that if you misbehave, I will have to order you to leave this chamber. Please return to your seat immediately. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, return to your seat and remain silent. Will members return to their seats, please? Bill first reading. Appropriation Bill 2016. Bill second reading. The Financial Secretary. Mr. President, I move the second reading of the Appropriation Amendment Bill. This is my 9th year as Financial Secretary. Over the past years, the people of Hong Kong and I together have witnessed the incessant ups and downs in global economy. I feel blessed that Hong Kong has managed to ride out the storms. Mr. President, I move the second reading of the Appropriation Bill 2016. This is my 9th year as Financial Secretary. Over the past years, the people of Hong Kong and I together have witnessed the incessant ups and downs in global economy. I feel blessed that Hong Kong has managed to ride out the storms. We have secured decent economic growth, we have maintained low unemployment, and we have managed healthy public finances. I am deeply indebted to the previous generations for the solid foundations they have built. I am profoundly impressed, too, by the tenacity of Hong Kong people. Openness, diversity, freedom, and rule of law, which have all along been the core values of the people of Hong Kong, have guided our way. Even though the development path of Hong Kong has not been an easy one, our direction is clear and, step by step, we have been charting our course, a course that we call our own. I think we, the Hong Kong people, are proud of our ability to persevere through these turbulent years. It is only 2 months since the start of 2016, but the occurrence of incidents in Hong Kong has given rise to grave concerns. 2 weeks ago, in the early hours of the second day of the Lunar New Year, a serious unlawful incident broke out in Mongkok. A handful of people lost their rationality and attacked police officers and reporters that were present, provoking a large-scale riot and caused dozens of injuries. I believe many people share my feelings towards the incident. Distressed and angry, I was perplexed as to why violence has flared in Hong Kong. I was shocked that our city could have turned overnight into such a strange and alien place that I hardly recognized. I was troubled why the core values that we long cherished had been devoured by violence and hatred. Acute social conflicts to add uncertainties to the already adverse economic environment. 2016 as an election year. Apart from the Legislative Council by-election to be held 4 days from today, a Legco general election is scheduled to be held in 6 months' time. We anticipate that political disputes will only intensify over the coming months. Politics and economics are closely intertwined. Political volatility will unavoidably impact on our economy. It is the duty of the government to take on challenges in our society. As Financial Secretary, it is my duty to mobilize resources effectively to maintain Hong Kong's economic development and fiscal health, to support local enterprises, in particular the small and medium enterprises, to cope with economic volatilities and to safeguard the jobs of workers. The government should also continue to fortify the economic foundation of Hong Kong, promote diversity and channel public resources towards improving people's livelihood and supporting the disadvantaged. All sectors should have a fair chance in sharing the fruit of our economic success, and everyone in Hong Kong, regardless of age, gender, and race, should be able to unleash their potential and lead a better life through hard work. Export performance in the Asian region was hit by a global economic setback and highly volatile financial markets in 2015. Our exports of goods recorded the first annual decline since 2009, down by 1.7% in real terms. Exports of services dropped by 0.6%, the first annual decrease since 1998. Inbound tourism was weak, and visitor arrivals dropped by 8% in the fourth quarter, down by 2.5% for the whole year. Retail sales slackened, recording the first annual decrease since 2009. Domestic demand was the key driving force of economic growth last year. Although the investment atmosphere turned more cautious, local consumption as well as expenditures on infrastructure and private construction projects remained resilient. These, together with the stimulus of the relief measures introduced in last year's budget, led to an overall economic growth of 2.4%. This is the fourth consecutive year that our economic growth was lower than an annual average of 3.4% over the past 10 years. The economy saw significant downward pressure in the later half of the year, further slowing down to 1.9% growth in the fourth quarter. The unemployment rate averaged at a low level of 3.3% for the year as a whole. Wages and income improved generally. Employment earnings for the lowest three income decile full-time employees rose by 5 to 6% as compared with the year before. But the recent decline in labor demand in the sectors related to inbound tourism is giving us cause for concern. Given the slowdown of the local economy and mild import inflation, inflation has dropped for 4 consecutive years. The headline inflation rate in 2015 was 3%, netting out the effects of government's one-off measures. The underlying inflation rate at 2.5% was down by 1 percentage point from 2014. Since the start of 2016, the global economic climate has continued to be unsteady, marked by increasing risks amid the modest and patchy economic growth of advanced economies, downward pressures on emerging markets, and heightened geopolitical tension. The U.S. Federal Reserve Board started an interest rate increase last year, but the central banks of the Eurozone and Japan have maintained their quantitative easing policies and adopted negative interest rate measures. The divergent monetary policies are causing volatility in international financial markets and capital flows. Emerging economies will be under dual pressure of falling commodity prices and suppressed financial markets. The mainland's economy will also face downward pressure. As for Hong Kong, local consumption and investor sentiment have been dented by concerns over the uncertainties associated with U.S. interest rate increases and a dimmer global economic outlook, lull in external trade, and slowdown inbound tourism. Pressure may spill over into the job market and business operation of enterprises. The value of total exports of goods and the number of visitors' arrivals in Hong Kong have both recorded a year-on-year decline since mid-2015, and the fall is likely to be more severe in 2016. I forecast gross domestic product growth in real terms at 1 to 2% in 2016, lower than last year's growth. Given the subdued global commodity prices, import inflation is expected to be relatively mild. Slower economic growth and the adjustment in property market will reduce rental pressure. I forecast that the headline inflation rate of 2016 will be 2.3%, with the underlying inflation rate at 2%. The local economy is laden with risks in the year ahead. The outlook is far from promising. We need to take timely and appropriate measures to stimulate the economy, support local enterprises, and safeguard employment. There are 320,000 SMEs in Hong Kong, employing 50% of the private sector workforce. This underscores the role of SMEs as the mainstay of our economy. To gear up for adversities ahead, I shall provide SMEs with appropriate support measures to stabilize the employment market. To help SMEs tide over their liquidity needs, I shall introduce 3 measures. A. Extend the application period for the special concessionary measures under the SME Financing Guarantee Scheme to 28th of February 2017. B. Reduce the annual guarantee fee rate for the measures by 10%. And C. Remove the minimum guarantee fee for the measures. To ease the burden on enterprises, I shall reduce profits tax for 2015-16 by 75%, subject to a ceiling of $20,000. This proposal will benefit 130,000 taxpayers and reduce government revenue by $1.9 billion. I shall waive the business registration fees for 2016-17 to benefit 1.3 million business operators. This proposal will reduce government revenue by $2.5 billion. To enhance the long-term competitiveness of SMEs, I shall launch a pilot technology voucher program under the Innovation and Technology Fund to subsidize the use of technological services and solutions to improve productivity and upgrade or transform business processes. The 3-year pilot program will provide, on a matching basis, a maximum subsidy of $200,000 for each eligible SME. The estimated expenditure of this program is $500 million. Tourism contributes 5% to our GDP and employs 270,000 people. It provides plenty of jobs. For some 10 years, tourism and other related industries have experienced rapid growth through the support of mainland's individual visit scheme and its related policies. The number of inbound visitors has increased to 60 million, 4 times that of 2003. The local tourism industry is facing keen competition as a result of a weakening external economy, devaluation currency of neighboring places, and the relaxation of visa requirements for mainland tourists since last year. This, coupled with the 1 trip per week measure for Shenzhen residents, has caused a drop in visitors' arrivals. Apart from external factors, some recent incidents in Hong Kong are causing concern. These include a handful of people choosing to express their views and political demands using irrational and uncivilized tactics, such as hurling abuses at visitors and kicking their suitcases. Furthermore, problems arising from coerced shopping have been plaguing the tourism sector. These destructive acts have not only damaged the economy but also severely tarnished Hong Kong's reputation as a hospitality city internationally. While some have claimed that the acts were committed out of concern for local interests, their actions are in fact not the kind of behavior that reflects love for Hong Kong. If they truly care about the development of Hong Kong, they should by no means exercise their right to freedom of expression at the expense of peace in our society and livelihood of innocent citizens. The tourism industry has entered a period of consolidation. In view of the changing mix and spending pattern of visitors, we need to review the development strategy of our tourism industry. Other than seeking growth in visitor numbers, we should move towards diversified and quality-driven high-value-added services with a view to attracting more high-spending overnight visitors to Hong Kong. In light of this new situation, I shall launch short, medium, and long-term measures to reduce the industry's cost of operation and enhance Hong Kong's attractiveness and competitiveness. I shall introduce 3 short-term measures costing a total of $140 million for related trades and industries. A. Waive the license fees for 1,800 travel agents for 1 year. B. Waive the license fees for 2,000 hotels and guest houses for 1 year. And C. Waive the license fees for restaurants and hawkers and fees for restricted food permits for 1 year, benefiting 27,000 restaurants and operators. In the medium term, I shall allocate $240 million for government and industry to jointly launch 5 measures. A. Expand the scale of major events to be held this year, including holding the Formula E Championship for the first time, expanding the venue for Hong Kong Wine and Dine Festival with more featured themes, extending the race of Hong Kong Cyclothon to 50 kilometers to attract more overseas cyclists, staging additional Pulse 3D light shows at the Hong Kong Cultural Center, and stepping up publicity for international sports events such as the rugby events, the Tennis Open Tournament, and the Golf Open Tournament. B. Through the Hong Kong Tourism Board, repackage Hong Kong's tourism image with new promotional videos, launch a new round of publicity for short-haul markets, and step up publicity in the mainland for quality and honest tours. C. Through the HKTB, assist the industry to open up new visitor sources through various means, including implementation of the matching fund for promoting tourist attractions, promotion of shopping and spending, promotion of MICE, meetings, incentive travels, conventions and exhibition tourism, and fly cruise tours, as well as waiving of local traders' participation fees for overseas promotion fairs. D. Through the Travel Industry Council of Hong Kong, subsidize small and medium-sized travel agencies on a matching basis to make use of information technology so as to enhance competitiveness of industry. And C. Continue to promote Hong Kong's natural scenery as well as our unique history and culture, including enriching the content of Dr. Sun Yat-sen Historical Trail with the theme of Art Across Time in tune with PMQ and the former Central Police Station compound, which will open this year. In the long run, we shall upgrade our tourism infrastructure. Hong Kong Disneyland will open in 2016 and 2017, respectively, a new themed area based on Marvel's Iron Man franchise and a new hotel with a theme dedicated to the spirit of exploration. The government will continue to discuss with Walt Disney Company the overall development of the theme park. The first hotel in Ocean Park and Water World in Tai Shi Wan are also scheduled for completion in 2017 and 2018, respectively. The government will continue preparatory work for the tourism projects in Kai Tak and Lantau. The design work for the conference facilities above the proposed exhibition station of Sha Tin to Central Link is underway. We shall embark on the pilot scheme on food trucks this year. The concept has attracted wide interest from the community. I shall increase the number of designated space to 16. The initiative will enhance the appeal of our tourist attractions and enrich local food culture. Local consumption has been a key driver for Hong Kong's economic growth in recent years. Easing the burden of citizens will have a stimulus effect. Taking into account the current macro environment, the government's fiscal capacity, and the need to boost the economy in short term, I shall introduce 3 relief measures. A. Reduce salaries tax and tax under personal assessment for 2015-16 by 75%, subject to a ceiling of $20,000. This proposal will benefit 1.96 million taxpayers and reduce government revenue by $17 billion. B. Waive rates for 4 quarters of 2016-17, subject to a ceiling of $1,000 per quarter for each rateable property. This will benefit 3.17 million properties and reduce government revenue by $11 billion. And C. Provide an extra allowance to Social Security recipients equal to 1 month of the standard rate comprehensive Social Security assistance payments, OH allowance, OH living allowance, or disability allowance. This will involve an additional expenditure of $2.8 billion. As regards recurrent measures, I shall adjust 2 categories of allowances under salaries tax and personal assessment from 2016-17. First, the basic allowance and the single parent allowance will be raised from $120,000 to $132,000, and the married person's allowance from $240,000 to $264,000. These proposals will benefit 1.93 million taxpayers and reduce tax revenue by $2.9 billion a year. Second, I shall increase the allowances for maintaining a dependent parent or grandparent, benefiting 600,000 taxpayers and reducing tax revenue by $860 million a year. The adjustments include A. Increasing the allowance for maintaining a dependent parent or grandparent aged 60 or above from $40,000 to $46,000. The same increase applies to the additional allowance for taxpayers residing with these parents or grandparents continuously throughout the year. increasing the allowance for maintaining a dependent parent or grandparent aged between 55 and 59 from $20,000 to $23,000. The same increase applies to the additional allowance for taxpayers residing with these parents or grandparents continuously through the year, and C. Raising the deduction ceiling for elderly residential care expenses from $80,000 to $92,000 for taxpayers whose parents or grandparents are admitted to residential care homes. This set of tax and short-term relief measures will cost $38.8 billion in total. Together with other spending initiatives in the budget, they will have a fiscal stimulus effect of boosting GDP for 2016 by 1.1%. I have to emphasize that relief measures are different from recurring expenditure. Relief measures aim to help citizens cope with the current financial pressure and serve as a counter-cyclical measure to preserve economic stability and safeguard employment. These are subject to adjustment in light of economic and financial position of the year. Recurrent expenditure is deployed for new policies, new services, or enhancement of the existing services. Since 2008 financial tsunami, the global economy has undergone sweeping changes. With the global economic gravity shifting towards the east, emerging markets are playing a much more important and influential role. The breakthroughs in IT development have also brought about paradigm shifts in different economic and social spheres, changing our daily lives and business modalities. These two new forces have changed the global economic landscape, gradually shaping a new economic order globally, offering new directions and providing room for developments for both traditional and emerging industries. They have also lowered the threshold for startups and created a more open market ecosystem. These groundbreaking paradigm shifts have disrupted the conventional modalities and unavoidably impacted on existing market players. We should not shy away from challenges in today's ever-changing world. Instead, we should rise to the challenges by taking a long perspective and keeping an open mind. We should weigh the impact of these changes on society and solve problems with an innovative mindset. The government will uphold the long-term principles of technology neutrality and protection of consumer rights in promoting the application of technology, ensuring healthy development of the market with appropriate regulatory control. Over the years, Hong Kong has sustained its competitive edge because of our trade network and highly internationalized. Our market is transparent and open, and our society is clean and law-abiding. Under the new economic order, we must act swiftly, get prepared, identify development opportunities, and position Hong Kong as a key player in the competition. Building on our strengths, together with Hong Kong people's flexibility, resourcefulness, and market acumen, we shall, as always, be able to stand out in the face of stiff global competition. The application of many making innovative technologies such as cloud computing, big data, robotics, artificial intelligence, and technology is growing fast, bringing us many revolutionary business models and services. More trading is being done virtually and is no longer constrained by geographical boundaries. The highly efficient global supply chains have connected markets in every corner of the world and presented different industries with a wider range of possibilities.
Hong Kong has world-class IT facilities, research and development institutes and personnel, financing platforms, and above all, a well-developed system to safeguard international property rights. The neighboring Pearl River Delta region and Shenzhen in particular has developed into a manufacturing hub of advanced technology products in recent years. The immense synergy effects so generated will provide powerful support for Hong Kong's internationalized corporations in material application, prototyping, and production. Having regard to Hong Kong's practical circumstances, comparative advantages, and the direction of our urban development, we can widely apply and commercialize R&D results in the three areas of robotics, healthy aging, and smart city to boost economic development and enhance the quality of life. With an aging population and a shrinking workforce, the application of smart production technologies, in particular robotics, is vital. Robotics can enhance production efficiency and quality. The manpower spared can be devoted to high value-added processes to increase the value of output. The Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, Hong Kong STPC, is considering promoting smart production and research at the Tseung Kwan O Industrial Estate. Advanced manufacturing industries using robotics and IT will be brought together to drive the development of the entire value chain covering product R&D, design, production, testing, as well as marketing and branding. It is estimated that this project will cost $8.2 billion and will be completed in 2021-22. The use of intelligent home care equipment, Internet of Things, and medical rehabilitation devices helps improve the elderly's quality of life, alleviate the burden on the healthcare system, and promote healthy aging, thereby enabling the elderly to lead an enjoyable life in the community. Many innovative technologies such as electronic wheelchair, medical image scanning system, and medical equipment for stroke rehabilitation, developed by local manufacturers and supported by the Science Park, have come on stream. Biotechnology, healthcare, and medicine will remain the key R&D focuses of the Science Park. Government has earmarked $500 million to set up an innovation and technology fund for better living to encourage different sectors to apply innovation and technology to improve the quality of living. In respect of the development of Smart City, a locally developed optical sensing system, which has won numerous international awards, has been in use in many countries and regions to monitor the conditions of tracks, cables, and ducts to guard against system irregularities and reduce the maintenance and operating costs of infrastructural facilities. Government will implement the Water Intelligent Network project in phases by installing sensors in water supply networks to continuously monitor their conditions and reduce the risks of water main bursts and leakages, thereby ensuring the efficient use of freshwater resources. A new desalination plant using the latest reverse osmosis technology will be constructed at Tseung Kwan O. The design work for the first stage of the plant commenced at the end of 2015. The output of the plant, with a water production capacity of 130,000 cubic meters per day, which can be further expanded to 270,000 cubic meters per day, will account for 5 to 10% of Hong Kong's total freshwater consumption. Since last year, government has released 5,000 datasets in digital formats free of charge through the public sector information portal data.gov.hk. This is to facilitate the industry to develop more mobile applications. To foster IP application development, we shall refine the existing geographic information systems and explore ways to align and integrate the spatial data in Hong Kong, including the location and relevant information of facilities that are above, on, and underground level. I shall allocate an additional $200 million to install traffic detectors along some strategic routes to provide the public with more real-time traffic information and enhance transport efficiency. Government is committed to promoting the use of electric vehicles. We're actively installing more and better charging facilities and promoting the use of electric vehicles in the public transport sector. With the growing popularity of electric vehicles, there will be more retired batteries, which can still be reused for energy storage. We shall organize an international competition this year to encourage the sector to explore ways to make good use of retired batteries. According to the Global Information Technology Report 2015 published by the World Economic Forum, Hong Kong's mobile network coverage ranks first in the world. Hong Kong is also among the world leaders in terms of the speed of broadband services and the number of Wi-Fi hotspots. Government has earmarked $500 million to further increase the number of Wi-Fi.hk hotspots to over 30,000, bringing greater convenience to our citizens and tourists. Government will introduce and enhance various funding schemes to encourage more private enterprises to invest in R&D and applied technology and to translate outstanding local R&D achievement into products and services with commercial value. Other than injecting a sum of $5 billion into the ITF as intended, we shall introduce 5 measures. A. Inject $2 billion to launch a midstream research program for universities to provide funding support for universities to carry out more midstream and applied research projects in key technology areas. B. Increase the level of cash rebate under the R&D cash rebate scheme to 40% to encourage private enterprises, SMEs in particular, to put more resources into R&D works. C. Extend the public sector trial scheme to cover the incubatees of the Cyberport and the Science Park for funding their production of prototypes and samples and conduct trials of their R&D results in the public sector with a view to facilitating commercialization of R&D results. D. Extend the scheme that provides funding support for the technology transfer work of 6 universities by 3 years to 2018-19, and E. Continue with the technology startup support scheme for universities to assist technology startups established by university teams in commercializing research results. Taking advantage of technologies such as mobile communications technology and artificial intelligence, financial technologies or fintech offer consumers novel experiences in managing their finances and provide financial institutions with tools to improve their operational efficiency. Provision of financial services is no longer confined to traditional financial institutions such as banks and insurance companies. By leveraging the internet and mobile technologies, telecommunication companies, e-commerce enterprises, and startups are now able to provide financial services to individuals and enterprises. Fintech can be applied to a wide range of areas such as electronic payments, robo-advisors, distribution of financial products, big data analytics, cybersecurity, equity crowdfunding, and peer-to-peer lending. Some studies predicted that global investments in fintech will surge from $12 billion in 2014 to over $46 billion in 2020. The Steering Group on Financial Technologies, which I set up last year, has examined the direction for Hong Kong's fintech development jointly with the industry, R&D institutions, and relevant regulatory authorities. It has recommended a number of measures for creating a conducive environment and encouraging financial institutions and professionals from around the world to drive the development and application of fintech in Hong Kong. We shall actively follow up. In recent years, a number of international financial institutions and professional services firms, including Accenture, Commonwealth Bank of Asia, KPMG, Nest, and TUSPARK, have chosen to establish laboratories and incubation programs in Hong Kong. This underlines our edge in developing fintech. Government will set up a dedicated team under the Invest Hong Kong to organize international events and facilitate startups, investors, and R&D institutions to establish their presence in Hong Kong. The Enterprise Support Scheme under ITF will provide financial support to fintech startups and financial institutions. The Cyberport will set aside a dedicated space of 3,000 square meters in its co-working space, Smart Space, and roll out a designated program to provide support to 150 fintech startups over the next 5 years. In addition, it will arrange for 300 university students to join fintech training camps in overseas universities to gain more in-depth understanding of the career prospects in the sector. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority, the Securities and Futures Commission, and the Office of the Commissioner of Insurance will set up fintech dedicated platforms to liaise with the industry to ensure that the market will balance between market demand and investors' understanding and tolerance of risk when introducing innovative financial products and services. Consumer protection is an important consideration in fintech development. The Payment Systems and Stored Value Facilities Ordinance, which came into effect last year, has enhanced consumer protection. The Hong Kong MA is working with the Hong Kong Applied Science and Technology Research Institute, the Hong Kong Institute of Bankers, and the Hong Kong Association of Banks to set up a cyber security program, including the establishment of a cyber intelligence sharing platform and the conduct of risk assessment and professional certification. Government will encourage the industry and relevant organizations to explore the application of blockchain technology in the financial services industry with a view to developing its potential to reduce suspicious transactions and bring down transaction costs. The Cyberport will provide training to the industry through its incubation program to promote relevant technologies for developing more services and products. Hong Kong is one of the most popular startup hubs in the world. Last year, I introduced a series of measures to improve the ecosystem for startups to enable local industries to further diversify. According to Invest Hong Kong, there are now 1,600 local startups, representing an increase of 50% over 2014. Entrepreneurship is not exclusive to the young. Older people with societal experience and professional expertise can join the ranks of entrepreneurs to bring forth new possibilities by applying creativity, and technology. I shall continue to offer comprehensive support to startups in various areas such as business incubation, financing, business expansion, and office space. New measures include the following. A. The government will set up a $2 billion Innovation and Technology Venture Fund to co-invest with private venture capital funds on a matching basis in local technology startups. B. The Science Park will expand in stages to provide additional floor area of 70,000 square meters for startups and other technology companies by 2020. With the project estimates amounting to $4.4 billion to be borne jointly by government and Hong Kong STPC. And C. The Cyberport will earmark $200 million to invest in its startups. Hong Kong STPC will continue to support startups through its corporate venture fund and incubation programs. Hong Kong's creative industries are well established, blessed with immense development potential and a wealth of talents. Government will continue to support their healthy growth in line with market principles. The Create Smart Initiatives CSI was set up in 2009 to assist the trade in organizing projects for the development of creative industries. Government will inject $400 million into CSI this year, with priority given to supporting startups and nurturing talents. I announced last year that $500 million will be allocated to further the development of the fashion industry. I shall implement the 3 proposals made by the advisory group on the implementation of fashion initiatives, including A. Strengthening the promotion of local fashion designers and emerging fashion brands in Hong Kong and overseas. B. Establishing an incubation program for fashion designers, drawing on the experience of other fashion capitals like London, New York, and Seoul. And C. Setting up a resource center to provide technical training and support for young designers. I shall launch the 3rd phase of the Design Incubation Program in the coming financial year to help design startups build their business networks, publicize their products, and conduct market promotions. The overall admission quota will be increased to 90 design startups. I shall also subsidize, through CSI, designers of 10 emerging local fashion brands to participate in the Paris Fashion Week, while the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, Hong Kong TDC, will organize fashion shows for Hong Kong designers in the New York Fashion Week to showcase their brands, raise their profiles, and attract overseas buyers. We shall launch a series of activities in the latter half of this year. Among them are the first Center Stage, an annual international fashion trade fair hosted by the Hong Kong TDC, and fashion shows and forums organized for Hong Kong and Asian brands during the Business of Design Week. Last year, I injected $200 million into the Film Development Fund, FDF, and implemented a series of measures to promote local filmmaking and encourage young people aspiring to a film career to join the industry. The first feature film initiative, FFFI, was relaunched last year to provide funding to budding directors. The award winners of the first FFFI have completed their works, and I look forward to the screening of these 3 films. As for the 2 pieces of winning work of the second FFFI, their production is under preparation. Locally produced Cantonese films, a key component of the local culture, have all along been well received by audiences in the mainland and Southeast Asia. Cantonese is the common dialect shared by Guangdong and Hong Kong. The Guangdong province has a population of over 100 million, with box office receipts exceeding 4 billion renminbi in 2014, offering an extensive market for our locally produced Cantonese films. I shall inject an additional $20 million into the FDF to subsidize the expenses incurred by locally produced Cantonese films for distribution and publicity conducted in the mainland. The funding is proposed to be increased from the current $250,000 to $500,000 per film. This will assist the film industry in leveraging the enhanced measures under CEPA to promote Cantonese films to the mainland. The Hong Kong Film Development Council will announce the details in due course. To build a supportive atmosphere for arts and culture in the community and promote the development of local professional arts, the Art Development Matching Grants Pilot Scheme, funded in last year's budget, will be launched this year. The pilot scheme will help the more established arts groups and organizations enhance their ability in raising private donations and sponsorships through matching grants, thereby widening their funding sources and promoting a culture of donation. Government established a $7 billion Elite Athletes Development Fund in 2012 to provide financial resources for the Hong Kong Sports Institute and offer greater support to athletes, and at the same time identify and nurture young athletes with potential. Since the establishment of the fund, the number of full-time athletes has increased by 60%. The outstanding performance of Hong Kong athletes in international competitions in recent years is well recognized and can foster the development of sports and attract more international competitions to take place in Hong Kong. Hosting international events not only provides more opportunities for athletes to demonstrate their strengths, but also bring economic benefits, enhancing our international profile and develops the potential of the sports industry. Under the new economic order, emerging markets are of growing importance in the global economy. In view of this trend, we need to expand our trading ties with the rest of the world and develop more markets for Hong Kong enterprises. The proposal on formulating the national 13th five-year plan promulgated by the central authorities in November last year suggested that the mainland will step up efforts to further open up its markets to Hong Kong and Macau. Moreover, it expressed support for Hong Kong to continue to consolidate our competitive industries, to participate in the nation's two-way opening up and the Belt and Road Initiative, and to strengthen our status as a global offshore renminbi business hub. Hong Kong enjoys unique advantages under one country, two systems. We have not only a free and open market, but also efficient and transparent regulatory regimes, well aligned with international standards. We're well placed to endure any threat that comes with the volatilities in external markets. Looking ahead, we shall further leverage these advantages and provide appropriate support for our nation in the deepening of reforms, development of the economy, and the process of opening up. Our nation is taking forward the Belt and Road Initiative, a strategy for long-term development. The outcomes will not emerge overnight. Yet what is certain is that emerging markets along the routes are likely to become new impetus for the future developments of Hong Kong. Government will continue to promote promotion efforts to deepen the understanding of the business sector and the community of these new markets. Hong Kong TDC has launched a series of measures, including creation of websites to provide information on relevant business environment to assist the sector in their business expansion. The government and Hong Kong TDC will jointly organize the inaugural Belt and Road Summit in May this year. We shall invite key officials from the market along the routes, representatives from international organizations and business sectors, as well as experts in related trades to engage in in-depth exploration of cooperation opportunities and the unique role that Hong Kong can play. I led the first Belt and Road Initiative business mission of the Hong Kong SAR government to visit Hungary, Poland, and Germany last September. I plan to lead another business mission to Central Asia this year. The visit will enable participants from the business sectors to gain first-hand knowledge about the development potential and business opportunities in the region. Financial services will be in growing demand in emerging markets. Hong Kong is well equipped to serve as a platform for financing and fund management for these markets. I have asked Hong Kong MA to establish an office to facilitate the financing of infrastructure projects and provide a platform for pooling the efforts of investors, banks, and financial sector to offer comprehensive financial services for various infrastructure projects. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, was officially launched last month. We shall continue our active discussion with AIIB and the central government on Hong Kong's participation as a non-sovereign territory. We shall also continue to support the work of the AIIB and seek to leverage our expertise to service in capital markets financing, asset management, and dispute resolution. The success of the two sukuk issuances by government in the past 2 years has demonstrated the ability of our financial market to support the launch of Islamic financial products and meet their financing needs. We shall seize the opportunity to issue the third sukuk in a timely manner. Government will strive to pursue trade and investment agreements to expand our commercial and trading networks, creating more favorable conditions for Hong Kong enterprises to access the mainland and overseas markets. We have conducted 5 rounds of free trade agreement FTA negotiations with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. We hope that the negotiations will be concluded this year. We shall also actively seek to participate in the FTAs that have been or will be concluded between the mainland and other places. Last November, the mainland and Hong Kong signed an agreement on trade in services under the framework of CEPA. The agreement has basically achieved the full liberalization of trade in services between the two places, facilitating our services industry's access to the mainland market. We shall also seek to conclude discussions on a closer economic partnership arrangement with Macau this year.
We have an advanced and efficient transportation network. The cargo handled by Hong Kong International Airport makes up 40% of our exports in value terms. The eastward shift of the global economic balance has fueled the rapid rise of spending power and growing demand for high-end consumer goods in the Asian region. This is conducive to the positioning of Hong Kong as an aviation and maritime center and the development of our high-value-added logistics services. The capacity of our airport remains a problem that must be addressed. The existing two-runway system will reach maximum capacity within 2 years. To cater for long-term air traffic demand and sustain Hong Kong's competitiveness as an aviation hub, the Airport Authority Hong Kong is pressing ahead with the implementation of the three-runway system project, which is expected to complete in 8 years. Upon full operation of the 3RS, the airport will be able to handle 100 million passengers and 9 million tons of cargo annually in 2030. The increasing demand for international air transport services will spur the rapid growth of the aviation business in Hong Kong and Asia. Hong Kong has well-developed transportation and financial services. We shall examine the use of tax concession to boost aircraft leasing business and explore business opportunities in aerospace financing. E-commerce is booming in Hong Kong, with sales doubling from $140 billion in 2008 to $280 billion in 2012. To meet the demand for logistics services brought by electronic trading, Hong Kong Post will capitalize on its network to enhance the counter collection service for our online purchases. In the first half of this year, the Hong Kong Post will install self-service collection lockers in the community to make it more convenient for members of the public to collect their online purchases. The Hong Kong Post will promote the wider use of online postal portals such as Easy Ship and My Speed Post among their clients to facilitate the delivery of goods by internet shops. It will also continue to provide e-commerce support services to local SMEs in collaboration with the HKTDC and the Hong Kong Productivity Council. Shortage of land for the logistics industry has always been a matter of concern. The government will provide land for logistics use. We have reserved 10 hectares of land in Tuen Mun West for logistics purpose. One of the site has gained the support of the District Council and will be released for use by the industry as soon as possible. At present, the import and export trade has to submit various trade documents to the government through different platforms. To further facilitate trade in goods, we shall establish a single window for one-stop lodging of all the 50-plus trade documents and submissions with government for trade declaration and customs clearance purpose. The single window will connect with other government systems as well as trade information platforms run by the private sector. The government will set up a dedicated office to coordinate with the relevant departments, engage the industries, and prepare the detailed design and implementation program for the single window. It is expected that the first phase of the initiative will be launched in 2018. IP trading is vital to the growth of a knowledge-based economy. To encourage enterprises to engage in the development of related business and to promote Hong Kong as an IP trading hub in the region, we shall expand the scope of tax deduction for capital expenditure incurred for the purchase of IP rights from the existing 5 categories to 8. The additions are layout design of integrated circuits, plant varieties, and rights in performance. Hong Kong is the world's largest offshore renminbi business hub with the world's largest pool of renminbi liquidity. In 2015, renminbi trade settlement conducted through Hong Kong banks totaled renminbi 6.8 trillion, representing a 9% increase over 2014. Renminbi lending business also continued to grow. Outstanding loans amounted to renminbi 300 billion at the end of 2015, representing an increase of 58% as compared with 2014. With the wide use of renminbi internationally, there will be growing demand for renminbi trade settlement, renminbi assets, and related financial services, which will drive various types of transactions in our offshore renminbi market. We shall continue to explore with the main authorities ways to open up more channels for two-way cross-boundary renminbi fund flows, including the possibility of increasing the investment quota for us under our QFII. The successful implementation of the Shanghai-Hong Kong Stock Connect and the mutual recognition of funds arrangement is a key milestone for the mutual capital market access between Hong Kong and mainland. We have discussed with central authorities of the central government the launch of the Shenzhen-Hong Kong Stock Connect and the enhancement of Shanghai-Hong Kong Stock Connect. We are all set with preparatory work, and subject to the announcement, the central government shall implement the program as soon as possible. Hong Kong is a major asset management center and investment platform in Asia Pacific region. The business is burgeoning. As at the end of 2014, the combined fund management business amounted to 18 trillion Hong Kong dollars, representing a year-on-year growth of 10.5%. Funds from overseas investors continue to increase and recorded growth of 9% in 2014, accounting for over 70% of the fund management business. In 2014, I proposed to waive the stamp duty for the transfer of all ETF to promote the development of the ETF market in Hong Kong. The relevant legislation has passed by LegCo and became effective last year. The average daily turnover of ETFs in 2015 rose to $8.8 billion, an increase of over 86% over 2014. Hong Kong ranked second in Asia in terms of the total capital under management in private equity funds, which amounted to $120 billion as at September 2015. We are currently home to 410 private equity firms, of which 350 have their regional headquarters in our city. To promote further the development of private equity industry, we have allowed private equity funds to enjoy profits tax exemption allowed for offshore funds. The aim is to attract more offshore private equity fund managers to set up business in Hong Kong, which will in turn drive the demand for other related professional services. To attract more multinational and mainland enterprises to establish corporate treasury centers in Hong Kong, we have introduced a bill into the LegCo to allow, under special conditions, interest deductions under profits tax for intra-group financing business of corporations and reduce profits tax of qualifying corporate treasury centers by 50%. We submitted a bill in LegCo in January this year to provide a legal framework for introducing an open-ended fund company structure to further diversify the fund domiciliation platform in Hong Kong. Green financial business investing in environmental projects is gaining attention in the global market. The development of green finance is also proposed in the proposal on formulating the national 13th five-year plan. The mainland's financial institutions are actively promoting relevant financial products such as green bonds to raise capital for environmental projects with a long payback period, such as renewable energy technology, waste treatment, and sewage treatment. To encourage the participation of the financial sector, we shall strengthen our efforts to publicize our competitive market and highlight our edge in developing green financing products. AA will also explore the feasibility of financing through green bonds. Last year, Hong Kong ranked first globally in terms of funds raised through IPOs, which amounted to $260 billion, representing an increase of 12% over 2014. Given the size and complexity of the securities market, we need to constantly review the relevant regulatory regimes, streamline procedures, and enhance market efficiency and quality to reinforce Hong Kong's status as the premier capital formation center. SFC and the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited are planning to conduct shortly a joint public consultation exercise on enhancing the regulatory structure in respect of listing matters. We have launched 5 issuances of inflation-linked retail bonds, I-bonds, since 2011 under the government bond program. These issuances have all been well received and have enhanced people's understanding of and interest in retail bonds. I shall launch another I-bond issue up to $10 billion with a maturity period of 3 years following the existing practice. HKMA will announce details in due course. There is keen competition among economies under the new economic order. For Hong Kong to stay competitive, we need to have a pool of talents familiar with innovation and technology and equipped with professional skills. The talents must have broad horizons and a solid grasp of international affairs so that they can contribute towards the diversified development of Hong Kong as a knowledge-based economy and help open up new markets. Education has long been a major area of recurrent government expenditure. Expenditure on education for 2016-17 is $75 billion, accounting for 21.5% of recurrent government expenditure, representing an increase of 30% over 10 years. With good basic education in general, the generations born in the 1980s and 90s have become the lifeblood of different sectors. Government will continue to invest heavily in nurturing talents apart from our ongoing efforts to enhance the quality of education. We shall also offer more internship and exchange opportunities to students and encourage the workforce to pursue continuing education, develop a good mix of generalists and professionals in Hong Kong. This will help our new generations maintain their competitive edge and realize their potential under the new economic order. In October last year, I launched the Enrich IT program in secondary schools, which offers intensive training to students with potential. We have set up a steering committee to coordinate and promote the program. Members of the steering committee include IBM, Google, Microsoft, and Huawei. And then in the next 2 years, we shall continue to collaborate with the industry to organize activities and internship programs with a view to nurturing IT professionals for the development of Hong Kong. We shall increase the monthly allowances of the internship program under ITF and extend the program to cover the incubatees and SME tenants of Cyberport and the Science Park, as well as the startups to be funded by the Innovation and Technology Venture Fund in a bid to encourage more university graduates to enter the field of innovation technology. Last year, the Hong Kong United Youth Association and Y Society organized the first Future Leaders in Finance internship program, a summer internship supporting 20 local university students to work as interns in financial institutions in Beijing to broaden their networks and horizons. The government will provide subsidies and increase internship places to 40 this year. Partners to the program include the China Investment Corporation and the Silk Road Fund. The scheme for cross-boundary study tour for post-secondary financial talents, which we jointly launched with Shanghai in 2012, enables Hong Kong students to understand the prospects and dynamics of the financial markets in the mainland. The government will subsidize 30 local university students to join the scheme this year. The ASEAN International Scheme, launched by the Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office in Singapore in 2014, has so far provided internship opportunities for about 300 students. Through this scheme, students can gain first-hand knowledge about the economic and socio-cultural environment of ASEAN countries. From 2026 onwards, the scheme will be extended to cover the Hong Kong Academy of Performing Arts, the Hong Kong Xuan University, Hang Seng School, Hang Seng Management College, bringing the total number of institutions to 11. The government is committed to nurturing professionals to meet our needs. Since this academic year, we have launched a subsidy program of $960 million for students pursuing self-financing undergraduate programs in selected disciplines, including healthcare, architecture and engineering, testing and certification, creative industries, logistics, as well as tourism and hospitality. To further encourage continuing education, I shall implement a pilot scheme to provide tuition fee subsidy for 3 cohorts of students admitted to designated professional part-time programs offered by the Vocational Training Council starting from next academic year. Programs in the disciplines of the construction, engineering, and technology will be covered. The total commitment will be $200 million, benefiting 5,600 people. As for the construction industry, we've allocated a total of $420 million over the past 6 years to support the Construction Industry Council, enhancing its training and promotion efforts to attract more new entrants. As at 2015, 18,000 semi-skilled workers have completed the training. The government will continue to collaborate with the industry in upgrading practitioner skills, putting in place a clear career ladder, improving the working environment, and ultimately increasing manpower for the industry. The Earn and Learn pilot scheme for the retail industry has been implemented since 2014 to subsidize practitioners to enroll in diploma programs and receive on-the-job training at the same time. Joined by 50 retail brands, the scheme has been well received by the industry. It is expected that 1,500 practitioners will be trained. With recognition under the qualifications framework, the scheme will raise professional standards, show a clear career path for participants, contributing to the sustainable development retail industry. Manpower shortage in the financial service industry is particularly pronounced in the insurance sector and asset wealth management sector. Last year, I proposed to allocate $100 million to take forward a 3-year pilot scheme. Starting from the latter half of this year, we shall provide financial subsidies to practitioners to attend training courses to enhance their professional knowledge and competency. To attract more new blood to the financial service industry, we shall also offer university students internship programs to enhance their understanding of the job nature and career prospects of sectors. Land is indispensable for sustainable economic and social development. The government will continue to increase land supply to meet Hong Kong's needs in the term of housing, economic and social development, and for maintaining our long-term competitiveness. For public housing, based on the latest projection, government has adopted the public housing supply target of 280,000 units for the 10-year period from 2016-17 to 2025-2026. The Housing Authority requires substantial resources to implement the 10-year public housing construction program. It is estimated that the HA's cash and investment balance will drop to $16 billion by the end of 2020 March. I have set aside the investment returns of $45 billion in 2015 as an injection into the housing reserve. Taking this injection together with the 2014 allocation and accumulated investment returns, the balance now stands at $74 billion. When the government and the HA have reached consensus on the necessary government financial support arrangements, we shall seek approval from the Finance Committee for funding to be drawn from the housing reserve to support long-term public housing development. As for private sector, the government estimates that private housing land supply in 2015-16 has capacity to produce 220,000 units. The 2016-17 land sale program comprised 29 residential sites, including 14 new sites, capable of providing about 19,000 units, taking into account railway property development projects, to the URA's projects, and private development and development projects. We estimate that the potential land supply for private housing in 2016-17 will have a capacity of producing 29,000 units. The Secretary for Development will announce tomorrow the land sale program for the next financial year. Amid the increase in land supply over the recent years and the recent past and the market expectation of U.S. interest rate hikes, the property market has shown signs of correction since the middle of last year. Trading in the residential property market has turned quieter, and property prices have been falling for 4 consecutive months since last October, with a cumulative drop of 9% as at January 2016. There will be successive rises in interest rates, and the medium-term supply of local residential flats will increase. All these factors, coupled with various uncertainties overshadowing the economic outlook, could also add pressure to further property market correction. The public should carefully assess potential risks, in particular the impact of interest rate hikes on the home mortgages and their own financial position when making a home purchase decision. In 2015-16, the government will put up for sale a total of 3 business sites capable of providing 68,000 square meters of floor areas. Land sale program for the coming financial year includes 8 commercial business sites and 3 hotel sites capable of providing 540,000 square meters of floor area and 2,100 hotel rooms, respectively. Government will continue to increase the supply of commercial floor areas through various channels, apart from putting on sale the Trade and Industry Department in Mongkok and implementing the relocation plan of the 3 government offices in Wan Chai by phases. We shall also reprovision government facilities in 2 action areas in Kwun Tong and Kowloon Bay, and the land released is expected to be 560,000 square meters of commercial and office floor area. B. Convert the Murray Road multi-story car park to commercial use, which is estimated to provide 42,000 square meters floor area. And C. Redevelop the Queensway Plaza site, which is capable of providing 93,000 square meters floor area.
Government has devoted substantial resources to improving people's livelihood. Apart from education, healthcare services and social welfare are also main areas of government spending. The estimated recurrent expenditure on these 3 areas for 2016-17 is $198 billion, accounting for 60% of recurrent government expenditure. This represents an increase of over 80% when compared with 10 years ago. Recurrent expenditure on medical and health in 2016-17 is $57 billion, accounting for 16.5% of recurrent government expenditure. This represents an increase of more than 90% when compared with a decade ago. To cope with an aging population, government has set aside a dedicated provision of $200 billion for a 10-year hospital development plan to enable the hospital authority to expand and upgrade healthcare facilities in a more flexible and long-term manner. The development plan is a vast investment. It will provide 5,000 additional hospital beds, representing an increase of 18%. Operating theatres will increase by 40% to 320. Specialist outpatient service capacity will increase substantially by 40% from 6.8 million to 10 million attendances a year. At the district level, community health centres will be set up in Mongkok, Shek Kip Mei and North districts. Additional services for 410,000 attendances will be provided in the general outpatient clinics each year. The development plan will cover redevelopment and expansion of a number of hospitals, including Kwong Wah Hospital, United Christian Hospital, Queen Mary Hospital, Kwai Chung Hospital, Prince of Wales Hospital, Haven of Hope Hospital, Our Lady of Maryknoll Hospital, Operating Theatre Block of Tuen Mun Hospital, North District Hospital, Liking Building of Princess Margaret Hospital, and Grantham Hospital. As for the new hospital projects, an acute general hospital will be built in the Kai Tak development area. The two-phase project will be commissioned in 10 years and will provide 2,400 beds and facilities such as an oncology center and the first neuroscience center in Hong Kong. Government will allocate $10 billion to HA to set up an endowment fund to generate investment returns for enhancing public-private partnership programs. Government will also provide a loan of $4 billion to the Chinese University of Hong Kong for developing a non-profit-making private hospital. Government has made proactive efforts to help those in need through social welfare measures. Recurrent expenditure on social welfare for 2016-17 is estimated at $66 billion, accounting for 19% of recurrent government expenditure. This has doubled when compared with 10 years ago. The Elderly Commission is pressing ahead with the formulation of the Elderly Services Program Plan for Hong Kong. In the meantime, the government is putting in place a series of forward-planning initiatives to meet the challenges brought about by the continuous growth in demand for elderly services due to an aging population, including A. Strengthening and enhancing community care services to support aging in place, the cherished wish of elderly persons. Since 2015-16, government has increased recurrent expenditure by $170 million to provide 1,600 additional places for the enhanced home and community care services. Starting from 2016-17, a recurrent provision of $17 million will be allocated to provide 160 additional daycare places for the elderly. B. Speeding up the provision and improving the quality of residential care places for the elderly. We shall allocate a recurrent provision of $140 million from 2016-17 onwards to provide more subsidized residential care places, enhancing existing residential care places, and progressively upgrade 1,200 places under the enhanced Port Place scheme. C. Providing more elderly facilities. We have reserved space in 15 development projects or vacant buildings for the provision and conversion of existing facilities into residential care homes and daycare centers for the elderly. We're pressing ahead with a special scheme on privately owned sites for welfare users to provide additional places for elderly services through the redevelopment or expansion of existing service facilities. And D. Piloting a new model of elderly services. Since September 2013, government has launched, with $1 billion from the Lotteries Fund, the pilot scheme on community care service voucher for the elderly, which adopts the money following the user and co-payment approaches. The pilot scheme will be extended to all 18 districts and territory this year, and the number of service vouchers will be increased to 3,000. The Elderly Commission is also actively examining the implementation of the pilot scheme on residential care service voucher for the elderly. Government has earmarked $800 million for providing 3,000 service vouchers under the 3-year pilot scheme. Since the launch of the reverse mortgage program in 2011, the Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation Limited, Hong Kong MC, has received 1,000 applications. The number of applications in 2015 increased by 80% when compared with 2014. We shall step up promotion efforts to enable more eligible senior citizens to receive stable monthly income under the program, with a view to improving quality of life in their own home. To allow more elderly owners of subsidized housing units to join the program, I propose that the Hong Kong MC should explore with relevant organizations the feasibility of extending the program to cover subsidized sale flats with premium not yet paid. Many of our senior citizens are looking for investment products with steady returns. I encourage the sector to tap into the immense potential of this silver market by introducing a larger spectrum of appropriate products. Government will launch a pilot scheme to issue silver bond this year and next year, targeting at Hong Kong residents aged 65 or above, with a maturity of 3 years for the first issuance. Hong Kong MA will announce the details in due course. Our society is aging. This has far-reaching implications for our future public finances. I have earmarked $50 billion to improve the retirement protection for the elderly in need. The Commission on Poverty is conducting a public engagement exercise on how retirement protection can be improved. Any retirement protection scheme must be financially sustainable to avoid shifting the significant retirement protection expenses to future generations. I hope that all sectors of the community will keep an open mind and work together to explore sustainable proposals that meet the needs of Hong Kong. In respect of children and family, government will allocate a recurring provision of $2.9 billion to implement the Low-Income Working Family Allowance Scheme starting this year. The scheme aims to alleviate intergenerational poverty through encouraging employment and assisting poor families with children. Government seeks to help women to manage family commitments alongside work. On top of the additional places of extended hours service for eligible childcare centres last year, an additional 3,800 places will be provided in phases. A pilot scheme will also be introduced in the first quarter of this year to provide childcare training for grandparents. Starting from 2016-17, we shall allocate a recurrent provision of $180 million to strengthen various residential care services, special transport services, and community support services for persons with disabilities, and to provide support services for children with special needs and their families. Many people are concerned about how government will deal with the unused subsidies of the one-off electricity charges subsidy scheme. The validity period of this relief measure will last till the end of June 2016. Up till last October, 7% of households eligible for the subsidy still had unused credits in their accounts. I shall extend for the last time the validity period of the unused subsidies for 2 years to the 30th of June 2018. As Financial Secretary, I am obliged to ensure that our public finances are sustainable and can embrace the short, medium, as well as long-term needs and development of Hong Kong. Government expenditure will be directed where required in line with our policies. Government revenue will be built around a simple and low-tax regime, avoid over-reliance on one or two types of tax, and adhere strictly to the user pays principle. In drawing up the budget, we must follow the principle of keeping expenditure within the limits of revenue, avoid deficits, and keep the budget commensurate with economic growth. Government has to contain expenditure growth in the face of an aging population, a shrinking labor force, and a slowing economy. I initiated the 3-year measure as from 2015-16 to contain expenditure by requiring policy bureaus to achieve more efficient use of resources through re-engineering, phasing out dated procedures, and reprioritizing. We aim to reduce operating expenditure by 2% in 3 financial years. Resources saved have all been reallocated to policy bureaus for new services. Recently, the community has aired concerns about cost overruns of infrastructure projects. The progression of a project from planning and study, design and construction to commissioning takes years. It involves a host of uncertainties such as ground conditions, surges in prices of construction materials, wage hikes, economic fluctuations, as well as unforeseen circumstances in the course of construction. All these may lead to cost overruns. Large-scale infrastructure projects face even greater challenges. To strengthen cost control of public works, the task force I set up last year has examined the causes of the rising cost of work projects and formulated improvement measures. I have asked the Development Bureau to establish a multidisciplinary office to conduct a comprehensive review of the guidelines on public works, reduce unnecessary design and contractual requirements, and scrutinize closely the cost estimates of 300 major new projects in the next 3 years. It will report progress to me on a regular basis with a view to controlling project costs. We shall introduce more competition and seek to fine-tune the works procedures and enhance training to improve productivity. Subject to safeguarding priority employment of local workers and their wage levels, we shall rely on the enhanced supplementary labor scheme to alleviate the delays and cost overruns caused by labor shortage. Recent fluctuations in construction costs have occasionally resulted in higher than expected tender prices. To avoid the need to seek additional funding for unexpectedly high tender prices, we have urged departments to invite tenders before submitting funding applications to LegCo for less controversial projects such as schools and hospitals, which are livelihood related. We can then present more accurate project estimates to LegCo. Government has been committed to modernizing the tax legislation in recent years to ensure that Hong Kong maintains a fair tax environment, aligns our tax system with international standards, and enhances our competitiveness. Government just introduced a bill into Legislature this January on the implementation of the international standard on automatic exchange of financial account information in tax matters. I look forward to the early completion of the legislative process to bring the first automatic exchange into effect in 2018 as pledged. Hong Kong is also obliged to implement the project of the Group of 20 against base erosion and profit shifting. We shall conduct analysis, consult the trade, and consider participating in an international framework being developed by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Over the past 3 years, we have made strenuous efforts to remind all government departments to regularly review their fees and charges. Unless justified on policy ground, all fees and charges for government services have been set in accordance with the cost recovery and user pays principles. The review mechanism has been reactivated in most of the departments. Relevant fees and charges have registered an average annual increase of $400 million in the 3 years since 2012-13. With a relatively sound fiscal position, government has recorded successive years of surpluses. Fiscal reserves are estimated to be $860 billion by the end of March 2016, equivalent to 24 months of government expenditure. The reserves are all that we have at our disposal. They have yet to take into account unavoidable commitments, including $300 billion for ongoing works projects and $800 billion for statutory pension. Our fiscal reserves are the mainstay of our economy. It helps us ensure the stability of the Hong Kong dollar and withstand changes posed by economic cycles and aging population. As one may recall, Hong Kong was beset with severe economic doldrums from 1998 to 2004. During the period, we experienced 5 years of fiscal deficit, which depleted 40% of our fiscal reserves. Prolonged depletion of the reserve to meet ever-increasing recurrent expenditure is not sustainable. Recurrent expenditure must be funded by sustainable revenue. To maintain the health of our public finances and enable us to cope with possible threats, we must exercise fiscal prudence and live within our means. To tackle the problems that come with an anticipated structural deficit, I have established the Future Fund to set aside part of our fiscal reserves for long-term investments when we can still afford to do so. I have instructed Hong Kong MA to allocate $220 billion from the balance of the Land Fund, which is part of the fiscal reserves, as an initial endowment of the Future Fund, and to inject 1/3 of the actual surplus in 2015-16 into the Future Fund. The Hong Kong MA will deploy half of the Future Fund for incremental placement with the Exchange Fund's long-term growth portfolio to achieve greater returns. In preparing the budget, I have been particularly mindful of the long-term needs of Hong Kong. I have set up the housing reserve in support of public housing development, set aside $200 billion for the 10-year hospital development plan, and established the Future Fund as part of our long-term investment strategy. Government will continue to make forward planning for major financial commitments to meet the needs of social development and people's livelihood. Revised estimates for 2015-16. The revised estimate for government revenue for 2015-16 is $457 billion, 4.2% or $20 billion lower than the original estimate. It reflects mainly the provision of $45 billion for the housing reserve and changes in different incomes. Revenue from land sale is $8 billion or 11.6% lower than the original estimate because some sites were unable to be disposed of as scheduled. Given the fluctuation of the Hong Kong stock market with trading hectic in the first half of the year, stamp duty revenue for the whole year is $14 billion or 28% higher than the original estimate. The total revenue from salaries tax and profits tax is $17 billion or 8.9% higher than originally estimated. As for government expenditure, I forecast a revised estimate of $427 billion, 3.1% or $14 billion lower than the original estimate. This is mainly because the Finance Committee may not be able to complete as scheduled the deliberation on the proposed endowment of $10 billion to Hospital Authority for public-private partnership initiatives in 2015-16. For 2015-16, I forecast a surplus of $30 billion. Fiscal reserves are expected to reach $860 billion by the 31st of March 2016, equivalent to 24 months of government expenditure. Last month, the Chief Executive delivered the policy address covering a spectrum of policy initiatives which involve $220 billion of expenditure. I shall ensure that financial resources are adequate to fully support the launch of these initiatives. Operating expenditure for 2016-17 is estimated to be $380 billion, representing an increase of 11.1% or $38 billion over the revised estimate for 2015-16. Recurrent expenditure, which accounts for over 90% of operating expenditure, will reach $350 billion, reflecting an increase of 6.7% or $22 billion over the revised estimate for 2015-16. I forecast that capital expenditure will be $110 billion, including $79 billion on capital works. With a number of projects at their construction peaks, capital works expenditure is expected to remain at relatively high levels in the next few years. We are, however, concerned about the slow progress of deliberation in LegCo, resulting in a mounting backlog of funding proposals and delayed commencement of livelihood-related projects. The civil service establishment is expected to expand by 2,223 posts to 178,495 in 2016-17, representing a year-on-year increase of 1.3%. This has to do with manpower increase in government departments for implementing new policies and improving existing services. Total government expenditure is estimated to reach $490 billion in the next financial year, 14% more than that of last year. Public expenditure will be equivalent to 21.2% of GDP. Total government revenue for 2016-17 is estimated to be $500 billion, of which earnings and profits tax is estimated at $206 billion. Land revenue is estimated to be $67 billion. Taking all these into account, I forecast a surplus of $11 billion in the consolidated account in the coming year. Fiscal reserves are estimated to be $870 billion by the end of March 2017, representing 35.2% of GDP, or equivalent to 21 months of government expenditure. The global economy has seen rather low and unbalanced growth in recent years. Uncertainties in the external economic environment will linger on in the next few years. For the medium term, the average growth rate is forecast to be 3% per annum in real terms from 2017 to 2020, lower than the trend growth of 3.4% over the past 10 years, and the underlying inflation rate is expected to average 2.5% per annum. I forecast an annual surplus in the operating account and an annual deficit in the capital account in the 4 financial years from 2017-18. There will be a deficit in the consolidated account in 2018-19 and 2019-20, which mainly reflects government's financial allocation for the healthcare reform and retirement protection. On the whole, the financial position of government over the medium term remains sound. Fiscal reserves are estimated at $835 billion by the end of March 2021, representing 28.3% of GDP, or equivalent to 18 months of government expenditure. Mr. President, I set up a Facebook account on the eve of the last budget speech, hoping that its contents could be presented to a wider community through a channel that was popular among young people in order to help broaden and rejuvenate my communication with the public. Social media enables me from another perspective to observe people's daily lives and to hear their voices, including messages that cannot be accessed through traditional media and views that have not been captured by the mainstream. In the past year, I have gained a much deeper appreciation for the current state of play. I believe that many of you would share my feeling that tension and turbulence are mounting in Hong Kong. Many of us feel suffocated by and indeed helpless with the tiresome confrontations day in and day out. This highly charged atmosphere has continued to deteriorate since the unlawful Occupy movement a year and a half ago, even after the defeat of the constitutional reform package. Confrontations have not eased, or worse still, our society has become even more polarized. Political disputes are spreading both inside and outside the council chambers, setting off a spiral of intensifying struggle between rival factions. Calm and rational discussions no longer have a place in this council. There is not even room for dialogue in our society. As a member of the Hong Kong community, I'm deeply troubled by the current situation. What we are facing today is the result of a raft of intricately related factors. We need to look squarely at these factors in resolving the differences, and more importantly, we need to have the determination to resolve these conflicts. If we should allow the situation to get worse, what lies in store for Hong Kong will be even greater chaos, and our future generations will grow up in the midst of hatred and malice. A statesman once said, "Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by men." For the problems of Hong Kong, they cannot be solved by anyone else except ourselves. As long as everyone is willing to set aside short-term political considerations in favor of the long-term overall interests of Hong Kong, we shall have a chance to return to rationality. It is a long journey. We must be patient and persevere in helping our community to heal one step at a time. The road trodden by the people of Hong Kong has been thorny and winding. Our journey has been fraught with wars, poverty, epidemics, economic recessions, and financial crises. In spite of all these scourges and storms, we've always been able to find a way out. And the experience gained over the years has enabled our economy to progress, our system to become more refined, our society more diverse. Looking back on the road that we have traveled, I believe we have both the ability and wisdom to cope with the problems we're facing today. I also believe that one day we can break the deadlock. When the storms are over, we shall cherish all the more the harmonious and cohesive society that we have restored. Last year, through their World Cup qualifying campaign, the Hong Kong team and their fans had never for a second lost hope in the face of strong competition. I remember clearly the evening match against Qatar. Although falling behind by 3 goals, our team and their fans remained united and persisted to mount a comeback, scoring 2 goals in the final 5 minutes. We lost the match, but the never-say-die spirit that they exhibited won the hearts of our city. To Hong Kong, this very match has taken on a significance beyond victory and defeat. It has led me to believe that with our love for Hong Kong, we're able to overcome any challenge ahead of us, no matter how difficult it is. Thank you, Mr. President. I now propose a question to you, and that is that the Appropriation Bill 2016 be read the second time. In accordance with the rules of procedures, the second reading debate on the Appropriation Bill 2016 is now adjourned, and the estimates are referred to the Finance Committee for examination before the debate on the bill resumes. I now suspend the Council until 3 p.m. this afternoon.